believe 1 in 10 men actually experience some signs of postpartum depression, which it's 10%. Financial pressure is the number one thing that causes stress for anybody, right? No matter where you are and who you are. I was just creating random numbers in my head saying, this is how much we need to thrive as a family. I feel like men, we apply pressure to ourselves. I feel like it comes from society that says, hey, this is what men are supposed to be, think, feel, so on, right? I think some of it is probably good and accurate, but a lot of it is very unhealthy. We're adding a number two, that feeling starts to creep up again where it's like, all right, I need to make some more money. I need to start another side hustle, do all this stuff. I feel like we're totally fine. When I take a step back, we have the finances we need. We're prepared financially already before even having children. And kept asking her like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm totally fine. And then internally, I'm just sitting here thinking like, I am not okay at all. And my wife encouraged me to go see a therapist actually. And the therapist stated,
today I'm joined by Mitchell. Mitchell is a leader in sales. He's a community builder and soon to be father of two. I'm excited about this because Mitchell brings just, a perspective that a lot of men quietly wrestle with. We're going to talk about the expectations to be not just a husband, but a father, how to level up, how to build more for your family. We're going to talk about what does depression look like in men and fathers. This one is honest, reflective, and very real. I'm excited to jump in. Let's go. All right, folks, thanks again. I'm excited for this conversation. I'm going to turn it over to our guest today, have him introduce himself, tell us, where is he at, family, and yes, he's a dad, because everyone we have on here is a dad. So I'll turn it over to you today. Let's kick it off.
awesome. Thanks for having me on. My name is Mitchell Phelps. I'm coming out of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a proud father of one and one on the way. And so I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter. And then also I've got a newborn that's going to be born in a couple weeks. And so gearing up for that. But yeah, excited to be on. Love fatherhood and love just building more community and meeting other dads as well. So thanks for having me on, David.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. I'm excited about this. There's several folks that have mentioned Mitchell, so we're excited to jump in, learn about his story. You said there's a second one coming, couple of weeks. I'd love to hear where you're at. And if you could just like juxtapose that compared to where you were, was it 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago?
Yes, it's so difficult. It's so different because I feel like for the first child, we were so prepared. My wife and I, we were like locked in. We had the spreadsheet of to-dos, what we needed to do, the specific dates on what we needed to do by when. We're good to go. I
Mm,
feel like the cribs was set up like, a month in advance. Everything was in order. For this
mhm.
one though, I high key forget that we're having another child every day until it's like a reminder of like, oh yeah, like it's a couple weeks away. We need to start preparing stuff. So just not as prepared, but I feel like we've got enough things in order. We've done the rodeo once, so shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, I've often heard it becomes a little bit easier because the things you stress out about, it's almost like because you were so prepared the first time, this time around, you're like, oh, we've got it in the bag. As you mentioned that, the preparedness, where does that come from? I'm curious about, very few times I talk to fathers or non-birthing parents that they're so prepared. Like, walk me through what was going through your mind back then. How did you get to that place of preparedness?
I say it all comes from the partnership. It was my wife. She's very type A and needs the list, loves to check things off the list.
Mm,
I'm more like go with the flow, and so
mm,
I'll say I lean on her for being extra prepared at all times, and I just kind of follow her lead in that sense. But I think too the other aspect is just the sheer excitement of something new. I think
mhm.
that leads into how prepared you actually get because you start thinking and dreaming of like, oh, we need this, we need this. Oh, this would be cool too. And you start kind of going down that path. And I think with the second one, it's still just as exciting. But again, you've been there before. So some of the things you already have planned out.
Yeah. As we were talking before and some of the research for folks that know you, one of the things that you do talk about is the pressure. As though you were very prepared, but I'm curious, I actually don't hear a lot of male or men talk about the pressure that they face out loud. Like it's almost an internal thing. I'm curious if you remember the first time you probably said that out loud to someone, or the first time you realized, wow, this is a lot of pressure, not just as for the baby, but for my marriage. I'm curious if you remember that.
First time I probably vocalized the pressure was probably to one of my close friends or one of the guys I went to school with that also is in a similar lifetime frame as me as well, with kind of the things going on as far as being married and then also having children around the same times. It was I feel like men, we apply pressure to ourselves. I feel like it comes from society that says, "Hey, this is what men are supposed to be, do, think, feel, so on," right? I think some of it is probably good and accurate, but a lot of it is very unhealthy, and I think leads into things that are toxic. But I think when we think about the pressure that's felt, for me, the pressure I immediately felt was when I got married. I was like, "Okay, I'm the head of the household now. I need to be able to provide for my wife and our future family." And so that added some pressure. But then the second piece was when we had our first child, and I was like, "Oh, all right, this ramps up a little bit. Now it's not just my wife and this future family. The future family is here, and I need to be able to provide and step up for that family." And so I think as we're adding a number two, that feeling starts to creep up again, where it's like, "All right, I need to make some more money. I need to start
Yeah.
another side hustle, do all this stuff." But again, like the pressure is just man made. Yeah, I
Mm.
feel like we're totally fine. When I take a step back, we have the finances we need. We're prepared financially already before even having children. Before I got married, I was prepared to take care of a wife as well. So I think the pressure is just things that we add, but not necessary.
I'm curious if it's 2.5 years after. Did you get a sense of where that pressure came from? Was it the father? Was it just, you said the folks you went to college with? Was there a root to that?
The root to the pressure. Good question. I don't think it came from my father at all. I think it's truly just from society. I feel like society kind of shares and tells this story and paints this picture of what the traditional role of a father is.
Mm.
And I think historically, we kind of have some of those things trail into where we are today and present day as well. Where present day is just totally different. I think the household is shaped and looks different from what it used to. And so I believe that us in our minds, we need to translate what that looks like as well. We've got more of a shared sense of pressure nowadays within these households too, particularly the two parent households. And I think for me, that's been helpful to be able to lean on my partner and say, "Hey, all right, cool. I don't need to stress as much. You're holding stuff down, and we're holding kind of equal weight here as well."
Was there a specific point? I'm curious if there's like a story or anecdote that's coming up to you that like you realize there was a transition. Either it was, wow, why am I putting myself through so much pressure? Or was it your partner that said, what's up here? I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, I think, it definitely came from my wife telling me, "I don't know why you're putting this pressure on yourself, and I don't know where it's coming from." Because I think it was one night I was just like, yeah, I finally verbalized it to her and told her, "Hey, financially, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I feel like I need to, make more money, be able to provide, and so on. And then this is how I'm feeling from a work standpoint as well. Oh, we got the baby here with us,
Yeah.
our co-host. I love it.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was verbalizing with my wife and just telling her how I was feeling, and it came to a point where she just said, "Where does this come from and why?"
Mm,
She's like, "Mitchell, we're fine," and I was like, "No, we're not." And she's like, "Tell me how we're not," and I couldn't tell her.
yeah.
And that's when I realized that it was completely made up, and it was just false pressure putting on myself, and creating that barrier, and mental load, on myself.
Yeah. Oh man, that's that. It's interesting when people close to you speak to you in truth and in love, and it's like it just takes someone outside of us to like speak to that. One of the words out on the line here you mentioned earlier was the pressure of sorts, create things that are unhealthy. I'm curious if you could shed a little bit more light on that.
Say that again. So creating pressure that's just unhealthy on like
Yeah, you'd
myself
mentioned
personally.
unhealthy. I'm curious, yeah, if there
Mm.
were any examples that you're like, man, this is just not what I should be doing or what I should be feeling at the moment.
When I think about that and the unhealthy pressure, I think it comes to a couple of things. So, like, one, finances. I feel like financial pressure is the number one thing that causes stress for anybody, right? No matter where you are and who you are. And so, financially, I was just creating random numbers in my head of saying, this is how
Mm,
much we need, to thrive as a family. And we ended up getting a financial coach, and the finance
mm,
coach was like, "Hey, you guys are well and above what you actually need. You're doing a great job budgeting. You're doing a great job future planning for family and beyond." And so, like, why? What are you stressed about? And so, like, it really took that outside lens to say, okay, like, financially, you need to just chill out. Like, you're doing just fine. And I think if I think about any other pressure, it's I don't know. Honestly, I think it's really just financial. I think that's the main piece of pressure. Nothing really else that I think
no,
about.
man, and it's real. Like I have baby girl here, and I'm just like anything you want, but I just constantly been thinking about how to make sure. I mean, you know more than me now. You're further along in terms of. I think you might be starting kindergarten school. I'm talking about college and like all of that stuff. We're just like, we gotta be there. We gotta be there. Like I don't want. I knew know the money troubles I went through. And I never want her to be in that position. I don't know if that's right or wrong because then the idea is always like the person we are today is because of some of the struggles we went through, right? And so if we take that away from them, will they learn similar skills? And that's a whole nother podcast, man.
It is. It really is a whole other podcast, and yeah, you just open up a whole can there. But I mean, the reality is, no matter how well off someone is, and no matter how prepared their parents were to teach them and educate them, like, there's always something that they're gonna end up going through or lessons they're gonna have to learn. And one thing that I think about, I feel like I heard this quote somewhere. I don't know where it came from though, but it's essentially stating that all of our kids are going to be in some form of therapy or need some form of therapy for something. And the faster that you gain that realization, the more ease of mind you'll have that you
Hmm.
can mess up as a parent and everything's not going to be perfect anyways, no
Yeah.
matter how
Yeah.
hard you try.
Yeah. It does help you to feel just a little bit relief that like every generation is going to try to break free, do something different. And even if we are trying to be different from our parents, as a result of that, our kids are going to be different from us.
Yep, yep, exactly.
I wanna talk about, your parental leave structure for a little bit, because one of the things that we're trying to highlight in these conversation is giving people different menu items of what it's like to take parental leave. For the first time, I'd love for you to walk me through, what was that like? How much time did you take off, and what was the benefit for you? And I would love for you to kinda contrast that to where your head's at going into this parental leave, like, things you hope to achieve now.
So for my first parental leave, I ended up I was fortunate to have 12 weeks off, fully paid, which was amazing. So financial pressure, stress, you don't have to think about it, which was great there. Um, but for that 12 weeks, I ended up taking all of the 12 weeks all at once. So it was a nice 3-month period. It's kind of like a sabbatical from work, which is absolutely awesome. But I think there was great value because it was my wife's first time going through a pregnancy. It was my first time going through a pregnancy as well, having a child, and just being able to do it together and being able to see every single aspect of it together was just fun. And seeing the
Mm,
struggle my wife goes through of I remember, like, breastfeeding, right? Breastfeeding was super tough for, like, the first week or honestly, like, first couple weeks, and then our baby would spit up a ton, and so,
yeah, you
for us
did.
being able to tag team through that, I feel like, 1, we just created lots of memories together because I wasn't, like, in the office somewhere while she's over here going through it with the baby just throwing up all over her, but we were able to be in that together and kinda go through the trenches together, so I felt like the bond as, parents, it was really helpful for that. And then it was just even helpful for me to be able to see that, okay, the baby does need the mom a lot more during this early time period. But let me actually see what's going through. Let me figure out, okay, how do I actually add value to this child during this time and to my wife during this time as well. And so it was just good insight into that for me.
I think that's so big of yeah, we're going through that too, like just to spit in and um the interesting thing, was there a point in time where you were by yourself? I'm curious.
There was not, no,
Oh.
there was not. Luckily, well, I got to think. I don't think my wife left. She went on a girls' trip maybe like 4 months in, something like that. And then I was on my own.
Is that the plan for this time around, or will there still be like what does that look like potentially this time around?
It's gonna look different this time. So this time I actually switched companies, and so I don't have as great of a package, I guess, when it comes to my parental leave. And so I've only got 8 weeks this time. So it went down in the amount of weeks. And then I'm in sales, so commission. I think we only get half of our commission during that time period out. So financially, financial triggers are starting to go off a little bit, but still super thankful and grateful for just having time off and to spend with my family, no, regardless. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to take a couple weeks off just to assist up front and then finish the remaining 6 weeks either in the summertime or when my wife heads back on her heads back from her leave, so we can be able to tag team that time frame a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. The thing that I'm thinking through is the community of support, and you are building your own community. One of the things that I've learned well, and even by having these conversation, is building community as well. When did you realize that that wasn't there for you, or was that something you always knew, or was that just like new with regards to fatherhood?
Yeah, so when I realized that I needed community, it actually came a few weeks after fatherhood. And I'd say within the first month of fatherhood, I started to just feel some just general loneliness and didn't really know what was going on. And my wife encouraged me to go see a therapist actually, and that's when I realized I was experiencing some aspects of postpartum depression. Went through a therapist and had an amazing experience. And essentially, what I learned through therapy was the therapist stated, Mitchell, knowing you for a few weeks, it seems like you're a very social person. And they just straight up asked me, hey, have you been around people? And have you made friends? Have you built community? And I really realized in that moment that I hadn't at all. I was new to the city, like right before we had our child. We actually moved to Cleveland and didn't really know anyone. And so I was just kind of at home with the baby and my wife, which was again amazing. But being able to have some folks outside of that was necessary to be stable mentally. So from there, that's when was able to start reaching out a little bit and built the Daddy Stroller Social Club here in Cleveland, Ohio, which was already an amazing program and organization that got started up in Dallas with a guy named Calvin.
Had you done therapy before that?
I had not, no, I had not. I've had like different like coaches before, but not like an actual formal official therapist.
Was there hesitation going in there? I'm curious. I'm always like, I've had my experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there was not too much hesitation. I think there was more optimism because I'm just like, yo, I feel like I'm the type of person that I don't really share a whole lot about myself, like especially in detail, and it's particularly if people don't ask. And so for me, I was really excited to just get in a room where some like all the focus is on me, somebody just asking me questions, and it's their job to analyze my brain because I'm like, I don't know what's going on in my brain right now. So if you could just
Mm.
extract some stuff, that would be really cool. And you're certified to do this. So I thought that was like a neat element. And honestly, I feel like thinking through it, that's a good reframe for people to have on therapy. It's like, hey, this is your own personal person to just do a full mental diagnosis of you.
Yeah, no, I like that, right? Like I've had therapies around that. I have a coach, and one of the things that I do think about it is that like it's too much to put on my wife, like,
Hmm.
and weirdly enough, if some of this thing that I have is against my wife, like where do I talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's real. You need
um,
that safe space.
yeah, and I think that's really cool. As we have a couple more to wrap up. Number one, how did you like? I'd love for you to talk to me about the steps of like, hey, I'm looking for community, thinking about this. What are the three things you'd suggest to someone as like, I think I need some community now. Like what are like some active steps to do that? Because not everyone, are probably as outgoing as you are.
The first thing I would do is say to start with your own circle. So for starters, understand who do you have that's in a similar life stance as you that might be, a newer recent parent that's just around your community. So I would say, scroll through your contact list, think about your neighborhood, think about your neighbors, and so on, and reach out to those people first. If you don't find anything there, that's when I would start to go out to like a Facebook group, check
Mm.
Instagram, just to see if there's any community groups that are related with similar like-minded people. Also, other organizations like churches
Mhm.
or different community gatherings that might be going on to really just stay tapped into those. I feel like those are easy places to be able to find some type of community, run into a few different people, and catch wind of some recurring events that might be happening within your location.
Yeah, those are really good. Can't go wrong with church, can't go wrong with just I think just showing up. Like one of my best groups have just been me like showing up to Tuesday night soccer and like it was just something that we all were doing. Man, we don't really talk much, but like consistently
Yeah.
going, you're like, hey, like you do this, A, B, and C.
Yep.
So that
Yep.
was pretty cool. I am curious about, you talk about therapy and not a lot of people talk about postpartum for male. What would you want to share with folks about that? And also companies, because I think companies don't realize or even take this seriously as well.
It really just comes down to awareness. I believe 1 in 10 men actually experience some signs of postpartum depression, which that's 10%. Like, it's substantial. And it's something where I remember even going through the daddy boot camp before having a child. It basically taught men there was a class that taught us how to, do diapers and things like that. And they talked about postpartum depression, but only in the mom and
Mhm.
the child carrying parent or child bearing parent. Is that the right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they basically
Birth,
told us as
yeah.
the birthing parent, yeah. They basically told us as dads, they're like, yo, just continue to frequently check in on your partner after birth. And it was like, all right, cool. I can totally do that. And so when I found out I was doing that and kept asking her, like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm totally fine. And then internally, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, I am not okay at all. And so I would say that that's one reframe I would take back to or one thing that I would reframe in the daddy boot camp is, hey, you have to check in on yourself as well, because it's not as much as the mother, but fathers do still experience them as well.
One of the things that, like, for me, it was, they always talk about the mom, like, their body changes for 9 months, and us dad doesn't really have a big change, and it hits afterwards. So they've had 9 months to fully adjust because their body's changing. We are catching up. So
Yeah,
that's one of the big things.
that's so
Mitchell,
true.
this has been great, man. We'll love. I know you're doing some amazing thing where you're at. I'd love for you to share folks where they can connect with you and also join the community that you're a part of.
Yes, yes, definitely. Be able to connect with our Daddy Stroller Social Club Cleveland on Instagram. That's our main resource. Is on Instagram. We're going to build out a Facebook page as well, so that you can connect with us there. And then, if you just want to connect with me or get some more information on kind of what's going on, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, and then I'm on Instagram as well.
Amazing. All right.
Yeah.